just don't want to play for clicks. I want to be involved with a great leading program that's going to develop players. Him leaving Colorado, a shot across the bow at Dion. I don't think Dion cares.
We saw Logan Diggs move on from LSU to Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin. Don't be shocked if you see John Emery potentially maybe at another school, maybe like a Miss State or even maybe like a Texas A&M.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Quotes coming out about Embiid. Oh, he's a warrior. You'll never get him off the court. You're just telling me he's an injury. He's one slip and fall away from what's not seeing him anymore in this series.
I would have sat him because there was only 1 day between the two games. It's 2 days between games 2 and games 3, and it's 2 days between games 3 and game 4.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
A new week starts right here, right now. It's a Monday live on the early line on SportsGrid, all across the SportsGrid network. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination to consume everything all across the grid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. We are here together for the next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern time. 3 hours to look back on the weekend that was in the sports landscape. In a Sunday that featured a doubleheader of Game 7s. First in the NBA, opening round playoff series between the Magic and the Cavaliers. How that game and series was won and what is ahead in action around the association. We also saw a Game 7 last night on the ice in Dallas, a Game 7 the night before in Boston. We are on to the second round in both the NBA and Stanley Cup playoffs, and a Major League Baseball season continues into its second month. All of that, DRS, and plenty more over these 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern.
It's always great to have a Monday show here with you, Ben, so we can be those armchair quarterbacks to go over what happened over the weekend and also how we can use that knowledge for games that are coming up tonight and also this week. Exciting times on the ice and also here on the NBA hardwood, and a horse race that came down to a nose on Saturday. How about that?
A couple of incredibly close finishes, maybe the most close finishes we have ever seen at the 150th running of the Kentucky Derby. A magical and mystic Dan wins the 150th running of the Roses and the Cup Series in NASCAR yesterday as well. A close finish, of course, is always the case when you get to a seventh game of a playoff series. That was the case yesterday in Cleveland. 7 games, and all 7 times the home team victorious. But yesterday was no cakewalk for the Cavaliers back in the land. They do win 106-94. They win by double digits, but they were down by double digits late in that opening half. Cleveland down by as many as 18 in the second quarter, uses a huge second half led by Donovan Mitchell. He scores 24 of his game-high 39 points in the final 2 quarters as Cleveland rallies for a 106-94 victory at home to win this opening round set in 7 games.
Yeah, big third quarter here coming out of the break, 33-15. The Cavaliers won that quarter. It's very rare to say in the NBA at any time, 106-94 goes over the total because that one was even below a 200, which was crazy. And quite frankly, started out 24-18. That might have been an absolute steal, but good on there for Mitchell because he wasn't having a good game to start. I believe maybe 2 of 12 from the floor, turned it on 39 points, but also in a losing effort here. This team's going to get better, and sometimes the maturing process here, you got to go through some tough times. Paulo Banchero was fantastic during this series. In a game where his team only scored 94 points, he had 38 and 16 in that game as a 21-year-old. The Orlando Magic are in good hands, but that's a win that the Cavaliers needed. And also, how did this series play out? Call it since basically game 3, game 4. It's going 7 games because nobody can win on the opposing team's floor. And the Magic tried their best to do that with that early lead, but credit the Cavaliers for coming back at home and winning that one handily.
DRS, they say a series does not begin in the postseason until a team wins on the road. Maybe that opening round set between Cleveland and Orlando never truly began. We will look at the stars of the series that includes the second-year pro and the reigning rookie of the year in the NBA, Paolo Banchero, in a huge final 2 games out of Donovan Mitchell. The main reason Cleveland advances to the second round where the Boston Celtics await. Game number 7 yesterday in Dallas, where in this series, DRS, on the ice in the National Hockey League, the first 4 games, no team could win at home. Road teams victorious, so Dallas, who had home ice advantage, was able to claw out of a 2-0 hole to win yesterday 3-2 to win the series 4-3 over the Vegas Golden Knights. Games 5 through 7, home team victorious. The Stars bounce back with a victory to send home the reigning Stanley Cup champs after only 1 round.
You want those deciding games in your building, even if it didn't work out all that well earlier in the series. Case in point there with the Cavaliers. They had a 7-game series. They won 4 at home. They advanced. But in a Game 7, you always want that game at home. And there you go. The Stars with a 2-1 victory. Moving on in a valiant effort here for the Golden Knights. But maybe they'll rue the day that they just didn't handle their business on home ice like they needed to.
So for me, I said 3-2. That's my mistake. It was Radek Faska late in that game to net the winner for the Dallas Stars, and that is why they are on to the second round to take on the Colorado Avalanche. Round number 2 in the Stanley Cup playoffs did start yesterday at Madison Square Garden. The Rangers in game number 1, a series underdog against Carolina. The Canes, the Stanley Cup favorites, entering the second round. But the Rangers make a statement inside MSG. 4-3 the victory for New York in game number 1. They take that early series lead.
Yeah, lean on your top goal scorers and your top players. That's what the Rangers have been doing here. And also coming into the series, an anomaly here. The Rangers, with more points than anybody in the NHL and home ice advantage, were underdogs for the series before game 1. Now that'll flip over to the New York Rangers. We'll see if the Carolina Hurricanes can back this one up before they go back to Charlotte.
A huge weekend in Major League Baseball between the 2 teams that sit atop the World Series odds, the 2 teams we expected to battle for a National League pennant all year long. But this weekend in downtown Los Angeles at the Ravine, it was all Dodgers blue. 5-1 victory yesterday in the series finale that featured 2 homers out of Shohei Ohtani, including one that traveled more than 460 feet. The Dodgers pull off the weekend series sweep over Atlanta. 3 games in L.A., the Dodgers win all 3.
I mean, don't look now for Shohei Ohtani because the focus has always been on Mookie Betts here as a heavy favorite to win the MVP. Mookie Betts still hitting .352, but take a look at Shohei Ohtani. After going 4-4 yesterday with 3 RBI and 2 home runs, he's now hitting .364, leading Major League Baseball in home runs. That is outrageous here. This team is stacked, and boy, oh boy, did they put away the Braves. And as a Phillies fan, love to see it, baby. Love to see it.
You do love to see it, DRS, and the Phils have won 5 straight. They have the most wins in all of MLB with 24. Philadelphia now sits atop the National League East. The Dodgers, the second most wins in baseball and in the NL with 23 alongside the Orioles, the Yankees, just to name a few. We go around Major League Baseball where the hottest team last week all weekend long came to a close yesterday. The Twins had won 12 consecutive games before the series finale yesterday against the Boston Red Sox, but all good things must come to a close. The Red Sox win the finale in Minnesota 9-2 over the Twins. Again, snapping that 12-game win streak. The Red Sox were close to $1.50 money line underdog yesterday. They cash a big plus money ticket.
Yeah, hammered them 9-2, 11 hits here for the Red Sox. And sometimes if you want a streak to be snapped here, best to just get hammered in that baseball game, which the Twins did. Maybe they can start a new streak, but they're back in business now in 2024 after that long streak.
Yep, absolutely so. The American League Central will be one to follow. The Guardians still sit in first place. Alek Manoah, remember him? An all-star 2 years ago in the American League in Major League Baseball. He makes his MLB debut, his first outing since last August after he was down in the minors last year getting shelled as well. Not a good start yesterday in the nation's capital against Washington. 4 innings out of Manoah, 7 runs given up, 6 of them earned. A bad debut. The Nats win 11-8. Washington even 500 at 17-17. The Blue Jays 3 games below 500.
Yeah, that's not a good look here because you're just one of those good vibes coming back to the major leagues. You would even taken a quality start. 5 innings pitched, 3 earned runs, keep it moving. Didn't happen for Manoah, so certainly those question marks are going to pop up if they even let him get a second start back in the majors here this year.
Yeah, I would be surprised to see that be the case. It was so bad that the Nationals were a home money line favorite against Toronto yesterday with Alek Manoah on the bump. Big transfer portal news yesterday. The transfer portal entering it has closed. Where guys select their next destination has not. Cliff Amore is on his way from Rutgers to Alabama. A good offseason for Nate Oates and the Crimson Tide and revamping that roster. Game number 7 yesterday in Cleveland. Who won the series? We'll tell you next. Torrey Taylor, who they actually needed some help in terms of their punting unit. He is going to be great.
But I do firmly believe if Odunze's not on the board, that they probably trade back and gain assets and look to fortify their team across the board. But the fact that we got a bozo pick in number 8 here from the Atlanta Falcons, that's the reason why I believe also they picked out the Bears as the winner.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Giannis not available. So, what is that, a 6-year window? He's been injured in, he's been injured in 4 of the last 5 playoffs, Coach?
And he can't close games because he can't shoot. And he's not healthy. At some point, people need to look at Giannis and say, great player? Don't tell me all the time great.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The 2 greatest words in playoff sports. Game 7. Yesterday, an early Game 7 tip in Cleveland between the Cavaliers and the Magic for the last spot of 4 in the second round of the Eastern Conference postseason. Cleveland closed as a 3-point home favorite, a total that dropped throughout Sunday morning into the early afternoon hours, closing at 195 and a hook. Barely goes over. DRS, it was a series that all 7 games long, offensive outputs were hard to come by, and in all 7 games, the team that played on its own home floor ended up victorious. That was the story yesterday in the land as well. The Cavs were down by as many as 18 points in the opening half, but they rallied back in the third and in the second half in total. 106-94. The Cavaliers cover as a 3-point home favorite, a closing number at 195 and a hook. Ever so slightly goes over as the Cavs score 106.
And by the way, the refs certainly wanted to inject themselves in, hey, we're playing in Game 7 too, as you saw 30 free throws for the Magic and 36 free throws for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And quite frankly, in that first half here, the common sign here was for the Cleveland Cavaliers players waving off the officials because they were furious at some of those ticky-tack fouls. And also, when the announcers are calling out the referees as well, you know there's an issue. But this was a game that Orlando probably should have won. You know, I understand it's the NBA and everybody makes runs. But in a game where we say, Ben, it's not 245.5 as a total where eventually the offenses will get going. We knew the offenses would struggle. So in this game, when you're up close to 20 points, that's like a 35-point lead in a regular season NBA game with 2 good offensive teams. But when it was all said and done, the Orlando Magic, what we worried about for this series was where would the scoring be coming from? Routinely around 80 to 90 points here, and you saw that. Game 7, you can't shoot 33% from the floor as a team and try to advance. 32% from the three-point line. Even though the Cleveland Cavaliers didn't shoot all that well, the talent there, the chances, and being the home team was just too much to overcome. Now, also, as I was betting here, this was the final leg of my 4-leg parlay, and I got a little bit nervous before the game started because typically, Ben, what do you want to see? Home court advantage. Give me that spread at 6, 7, 8, or 9 points where you'd feel comfortable. They gave the Orlando Magic a lot of respect here by closing that line around -3 as a favorite towards the Cleveland Cavaliers. And right off the bat, it's one of those where you're like, should I hedge out? Should I do something? But with the +3, you're not getting enough plus money back on that side, like +130, +135. You want like the +190s, 200s maybe to say, okay, I'll bet a little bit on this side here to get some back here. That wasn't even the case. And as I watched that first and second quarter, I'm like, I'm an idiot. I just should have done it anyway. Now I'm not going to win anything. It came down to Game 7. This is what I wanted. It didn't work out in my favor. But credit Cleveland, that monster third quarter where they were able to get through. And also, slow start from Mitchell. They ended up finishing with 27 shots from the field, 39 points. He wasn't going to let the Cavaliers lose yesterday.
The home team covered in 6 of the 7 games, only game number 5 in Cleveland when the Cavaliers were a 4.5, 5-point home favorite and won by just a single point. That was the only game in this series that home floor advantage not only meant a win, but a cover as well. Orlando on Friday night in game number 6, led by Paolo Banchero once again, who scored 27, staved off a 50-piece, a 50-point performance from Donovan Mitchell to force a 7th game. DRS, in this series, both teams scored 100-plus in only one game. Again, that was game number 5 last week in Cleveland. The losing team in this series, scoring less than 100 in 6 of the 7 games, features why a total yesterday at 195 in a hook could be that closing number for game number 7. But the stars of this series showed up when it mattered most. We start with Donovan Mitchell. The 50-point performance in game number 6, virtually the only guy for Cleveland in a game where his team scored 96 points that was doing anything of might on the offensive side of the floor. And yesterday, with his team down by nearly 20 points in the second quarter, he scores 24 of his 39 in that second half. Really the key piece to lead that rally in the third quarter and into the fourth. Huge game out of Donovan Mitchell in the final 2, really, to lead Cleveland to this opening round series victory.
Yeah, it was good to watch here. And also, no shame in the Orlando Magic's game. They played very well during the regular season. But as you know, when you get to the playoffs, you got to have some offense to score in the half court. They just weren't able to do that. But also, from a betting philosophy in this series, remember Friday? I said, you know what? 2 days before we even saw the game 6, my best bet was always going to be the Orlando Magic on Friday night in game number 6. I just thought it made some sense. Didn't care what the number was. They end up winning and covering. So just a little point of reference where even though you have a wager on the series before it started, I told you it was the Cleveland Cavaliers. Don't feel the need that, since I bet Cleveland and I like something on the side, I just got to let it ride. Don't do that to yourself here, because being able to pick up a win on the Magic in game 6 and also now the Cavaliers with a win in game number 7, it worked out perfectly here. So don't let those preconceived notions that you have before a series level that on a game day where you really feel the other team might be the right side here. And it was the right side. Picked up a best bet on Friday, and then the series victory on Sunday. Perfect scenario for your boy here.
Yeah, DRS, we looked at that 4-point number in favor of Orlando in an elimination game for the Magic back at home, and both felt comfortable with where it was. It was tight down the stretch. The Magic do cover and win in game number 6, and it's also a further explanation, as we'll discuss with the first game of round 2 on Saturday night in the Mile High City, why game to game, night to night, you can find some value in those series prices. Because before game 6, Donnie, in our conversation in this set between Orlando and Cleveland, I thought it was going 7. Cleveland would be even a slight favorite on its own home floor. I bet the Cavaliers to win the series in 7 games in the correct score market at plus 130. They closed as a 3-point favorite, more than that on the money line, around a minus 156, minus 160 number. Cashing that ticket with only 2 games left, even with the series odds. And one of the reasons Orlando was able to force this to a 7th game, the reigning NBA Rookie of the Year, Paolo Banchero, 38 points yesterday in game number 7, 16 boards, at least 27 in the last 3 games of the series for Orlando, 30-plus in 3 of the 7 games. There is a lot to be optimistic about for the Magic, despite falling short in game number 7, moving forward for this Orlando organization in the next year. So that was the final game of round number 1 of playoff action around the association. We go to the first game of round number 2. It happens Saturday at altitude, and those Timberwolves mean business up next. Torrey Taylor, who they actually needed some help in terms of their punting unit. He is going to be great.
But I do firmly believe if Odunze's not on the board, that they probably trade back and gain assets and look to fortify their team across the board. But the fact that we got a bozo pick in number 8 here from the Atlanta Falcons, that's the reason why I believe also they picked out the Bears as the winner.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Giannis not available. So, what is that, a 6-year window? He's been injured in, he's been injured in 4 of the last 5 playoffs, Coach?
And he can't close games because he can't shoot. And he's not healthy. At some point, people need to look at Giannis and say, great player? Don't tell me all the time great.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here, because I'll tell you, that's a bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
You better be paying attention to what the Minnesota Timberwolves are doing in this NBA postseason. Led by Anthony Edwards, the upset in game number 1 on the road in the Mile High City of the reigning NBA champs. The Timberwolves DRS in the first game of round 2 go into altitude and hand the Nuggets a rare home defeat, 106-99. Minnesota wins outright as a 4.5-point underdog in game number 1. A total of 209.5 does stay under. Games 3 and 4 in the 4-game sweep over Phoenix. Minnesota was a road underdog. They, of course, win outright. Game number 1 against the reigning champs, a 4.5-point dog for the opening game of round number 2. Minnesota wins outright. The T-Wolves have covered in all 5 playoff victories now, 5 games in the postseason, 5 straight wins. And Anthony Edwards continues to elevate his status in the NBA. 43 points on the road in Denver in game number 1.
Yeah, we're remaking the movie A Star is Born. You take out Bradley Cooper, you take out Lady Gaga. You know who you put in here? It's Anthony Edwards. My guy is on the biggest stage out here, absolutely dominating. What do you mean, who else? What do you got? You?
Who's his co-star? You would have to assume that Anthony Edwards is taking over for Bradley Cooper.
I mean, so who are we going to throw in there? Let's go little Carl Anthony Towns. Is that who it is?
All right,
nice
sure.
Two stars are born on the same big stage at this point. Yeah, exactly. So that was the tough scene behind it. Yeah, we're all good. We're good all the way around because you know what's going to happen in this game? It's going 7 games. We talked about this series before it started, and with a legitimate chance for the Timberwolves to win. Now, granted, I'll tell you when I say, you know what, this team's going to win a series. I think the Timberwolves could win the series before game number 1. I still think that this game is going 7. The series is going 7, and Denver is going to win. But I loved what I saw here because when you have a player going on the road in elevation, and also we know we got that 4-game sweep over the Suns, but it was like, okay, now that was the Suns, and the Big Three never got it together, so the excuses would come out, which we love to do with OKC, Minnesota. Like, oh, are they ready for the big time, prime time yet? Minnesota is here right now on the biggest stage, and the reason I keep on touting them is because they have everything. Now, granted, Anthony Edwards scoring 43 points or 40-plus a night, you can't really count on that, but it feels like he wants to give that to you every night. But at the same time, they have everything you need. Again, balanced scoring, great defense. That's what wins in the playoffs, along with a superstar who wants the basketball. Game number 1 on the road, 17 of 29, 43 total points, chips in with 7 rebounds. He was absolutely phenomenal. Now, the question is going to be, we always know what we're going to get out of Nikola Jokic. Maybe a triple-double every night, but always a dominating performance. It's up to Jamal Murray here to be that Batman and Robin, and I don't know how much that injury is really affecting him with that calf where he was questionable for the last series. Coming into this series, he was okay last game, but that's something to monitor here because if he can't be 100%, be that clutch performer that we know, maybe it will be the Timberwolves moving forward and taking out the reigning champions in the NBA.
DRS, you said maybe we can't count on a 40-point performance from Anthony Edwards each and every night, but maybe we can. 40 in game number 4 on the road in Phoenix to clean out that series sweep against the Suns. 43 on Saturday, in game number 1. 33 plus for Minnesota in 4 of the 5 games for the Timberwolves. So, with a road upset in game number 1, you would expect the series odds to shift drastically. And they did. Denver on Friday, entering the weekend, minus 205 to win this series outright. The Nugs down 1-0, now a series underdog, plus 108. Shortest in terms of amount of games from the odds perspective is 6. That, of course, would be back in Minneapolis, a plus 165 number. To see it go the distance and all 7 is 2-1. And not just in the series odds, the RS, but in the Western Conference Championship odds, a change of favorites. Minnesota now tops them all, plus 210, 20 cents in front of the Nuggets. 1 win. Best of 7 series, only 1 win, but it goes to show how significant a playoff victory is and what it does to those market numbers each and every game.
And especially when you win on the road in a place that not very many NBA teams like to go and win for Denver. Now you rescue home court advantage back into your own favor. And also, I thought game number one played out exactly the way I thought it would go. I thought it was an under-type flow here because that's where Minnesota can win because they can bring the same defensive energy as other great teams in the NBA like the Denver Nuggets. I love that they got that win, but we know the heart of a champion in game number two at home. They know they can't lose that game, and I expect a zigzag bounce back from those Denver Nuggets.
Listen, game number 2 is tonight. Only one off game. We'll see a second game of this second round series pretty much before we even get to the start of others. We'll talk about that, how it affects the odds that have changed up next. Torrey Taylor, who they actually needed some help in terms of their punting unit. He is going to be great.
But I do firmly believe if Odunze is not on the board, that they probably trade back and gain assets and look to fortify their team across the board. But the fact that we got a bozo pick in number 8 here from the Atlanta Falcons, that's the reason why I believe also it's a great pick to have the Bears as the winner.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Giannis not available. So, what is that, a 6-year window? He's been injured in, he's been injured in 4 of the last 5 playoffs, Coach?
And he can't close games because he can't shoot. And he's not healthy. At some point, people need to look at Giannis and say, great player? Don't tell me all the time great.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad, bad, bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
After yesterday's Game 7 in Cleveland between the Cavaliers and the Magic, the entirety now of the opening round of the NBA postseason has come to a close. Round 2, as we just shared, started Saturday night in Denver between the reigning champs, the Nuggets, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. We have a doubleheader in round number 2 tonight. Opening game at the Garden between the New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers. And somehow, some way, already game number 2 between the T-Wolves and the Nuggets. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But here we are, second round, conference semifinals, if you will, in the NBA postseason. It's Denver and Minnesota, 2-3 matchup in the Western Conference. Oklahoma City, the conference's top seed, taking on the Dallas Mavericks, who won in game number 6 on Friday night over the LA Clippers. The Mavs, the 5 seed. The Boston Celtics will take on the Cleveland Cavaliers. And that 2-6 matchup in the Eastern Conference, the New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers. So DRS, round number 2. Any big surprises in your mind of how we reach this destination in the NBA playoffs?
No, not necessarily. Like the teams that we probably thought would advance would. Maybe the Philadelphia 76ers had a chance to upset the 2-seeded Knicks, but they certainly didn't here. We thought Milwaukee heading into their playoff round, if they weren't going to be 100% healthy, would be in a little bit of trouble against the Pacers, and they were. They lost that series. So going forward, I'm not really all that surprised because, again, when we talk about surprises, like the 4 major series that I wanted to bet all won. So otherwise, if one of those teams was lost, okay, there's a surprise for me. So no, I wasn't even mildly surprised at this point. I think we got the teams we expected to move forward, and here we go.
You know what's really interesting? Maybe not a surprise or a shock for me, DRS, but more so just how this all came to fruition throughout the entirety of the NBA season. You and I discussed Minnesota, OKC at the top of the Western Conference, but lurking behind even in the play-in spots would have been a team like the Lakers or the Warriors or the Suns, guys and organizations that we would expect to really kick it into gear in the postseason to maybe take out those young cores. That was the expectation. It did not amount to anything. And we had this conversation last week. Is the super team era in the NBA dwindling? Obviously, organizations and franchises will make acquisitions and some moves here and there to position themselves to be the best. If you can get a ton of stars or superstars, you are going to try to do that. But the biggest super teams, if you will, around the NBA this year really did not pan out. The Clippers acquired James Harden early in the year, bounced in the opening round because Kawhi Leonard still cannot remain healthy for an entire playoff series. The Suns' big 3 in the Valley, nothing. Injuries a big point for the Bucks, but entering the year, it was all of the fervor inside the Pfizer Forum to pair up Dame and Giannis. Giannis did not play in the opening round series against Indiana. The Pacers win in 6. So I'm not saying the super team era as a whole is done, but those younger teams that maybe did not have the playoff experience of some other franchises in bigger markets around the NBA have stood their ground here and are proving their playoff pedigree in round number 2.
Yes, and it's quite frankly exactly the way I thought it would go. But also, Ben, let's take a look at both of the series sides here, right? You take a look at the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. Now, to me, the Eastern Conference still not necessarily up in the air. It's a heavy favorite for the Boston Celtics. I don't know how much of a challenge they're going to get out of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Maybe this goes 6 games, but probably more likely in 5, depending on Kristaps Porzingis, if he can come back in the series and help alleviate some of those superstar talents here on the Celtics. But also on the opposite side, intriguing, yes, the Pacers and the Knicks. All right, we'll see what happens. Both will have to face the Celtics. But you flip it over to the West, man. You look at these 2 series that are on deck, man. You can argue, again, any one of these teams can certainly advance and be the Western Conference championship. So I'm actually really looking forward to the West much more than the East. And no, it's not, Donnie, Sixers got knocked out. It's just the way it is here. The West for a while really has been that dominant conference and just getting through that gauntlet before you even get to take on the Celtics, which from betting purposes, you take a look at the FanDuel Sportsbook and see the Celtics at that plus 105 number. There's a reason for that. Their pathway is easy. You don't have to go through that gauntlet just to get to the final. And maybe the Celtics, it's unfair to say the Celtics will be rested and ready for the NBA Finals because that's not fair. But I don't know how much of a challenge they're going to get, meaning will you even see a Game 6 or a Game 7 here in the Eastern Conference?
So this is why I love what we do through the odds, because it's the big picture conversation, super team era, homegrown young core stepping up now in the postseason. But now dive in to the odds, the disparities that we see from the East to the West and in the Western Conference and what it means for the Larry O'Brien Trophy. So let's start in the Western Conference. We've already seen the first game of round 2 out in the Western Conference playoffs. Again, Saturday night in Denver, Minnesota pulls off the upset, winning outright as a 4.5-point underdog in game number 1. The Timberwolves now are the series favorites against the reigning champs, and the Timberwolves now are the Western Conference favorites. Plus 210, 20 cents in front of Denver, 80 cents in front of OKC. These 4 teams, as you see, Donnie, separated by just over $1, $1.20. is now the only distinction between all four teams remaining to win the Western Conference crown. That is as competitive as you could ever dream of from the odds perspective to be the last team standing in the Western Conference and advance to an NBA championship series.
Yes, and also, if you're looking for value, you're finally getting that here in the Western Conference. Because, again, if you look at the East, we always thought it was going to be the Boston Celtics, and a betting point of minus 260 doesn't intrigue me. But in that Western Conference, the T-Wolves now, after that victory of plus 210, like if you've always thought the Denver Nuggets were going to be the best team, now is not the time to panic. It's a 7-game series. They lost the first game on their home court, and everybody's going to bail ship here on the Nuggets. Oh, I told you, man. That was a fluke last year, that NBA championship run, and now it's catching up to nonsense here. That team is going to be so hard to knock out over a 7-game series. Now, granted, the T-Wolves are playing great basketball here, completely healthy, annihilated the Suns, go on the road in game number 1 and pick off the Nuggets. And quite frankly, even if you said, well, the T-Wolves just going to take the night off 1-1 and go back to Minnesota, they would take that. But this isn't one of those like, hey, mission accomplished. You now have a chance for the Timberwolves. If you win game number 2 on the Nuggets home court, this series is all but said and done. And then you take a look at what those price points will be if the Timberwolves win game number 2. But I'm not giving up on the Nuggets. I always thought it would be a 7-game series that the Nuggets would win. So now I just take a look at the Nuggets at that plus 230 price to win the West. And there's value on that where maybe you take a look at the Celtics. There is no value, even if the Celtics probably lose game number 1 on their home court to the Cavaliers.
Final 2 weeks of the NBA regular season, into the opening round of the postseason. It was expected that an NBA Finals was going to be Boston out of the East, Denver out of the West. The Nuggets now no longer the favorites, and thus you have a better price because they're only down 0-1 in an opening round series where they're a 5.5-point favorite tonight for game number 2. Wild movement on the total, by the way. It was 205 and a hook. 10 minutes ago, that's already up by 2 points for game number 2 tonight, 207.5. So now let's go to the NBA championship odds, where Denver is not the favorite to win the West. And yet Denver has a better price to win an NBA championship by over $1 DRS than Minnesota. The Celtics, as we'll show you, plus 105, nearing even money. Short favorite to win the Larry O'Brien Trophy this year. But Denver's price is better to win the NBA title than that of Minnesota, despite the T-Wolves being a favorite to win the Western Conference.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't make sense that way, but also you have to understand at the sports book, it's 2 different betting markets that they're taking money on, so they adjust that accordingly. It's just not also like a correlation of exactly what's going to take place. But again, the Boston Celtics plus 105, they're going to get to the NBA Finals, which is half the battle. But quite frankly, the plus 105, holding it out for a couple weeks, that's not enough for me. But now you're starting to see the door open. The Denver Nuggets were like a 2-1 price, let's just say, now sitting at that 480. Now there's value there. The T-Wolves at 6-1. OKC, the number 1 overall seed in the West, at an 8-1 price. I like what I see now in the Western Conference betting markets. There is some value finally that we can sink our teeth into.
And we'll show you why the Celtics are such a strong favorite to win the East as we look at their second round series against Cleveland later on. Around MLB up next. Torrey Taylor, who they actually needed some help in terms of their punting unit. He is going to be great.
But I do firmly believe if Odunze is not on the board, that they probably trade back and gain assets and look to fortify their team across the board. But the fact that we got a bozo pick in number 8 here from the Atlanta Falcons, that's the reason why I believe also they picked out the Bears as the winner.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Giannis not available. So, what is that, a 6-year window? He's been injured in, He's been injured in 4 of the last 5 playoffs, Coach?
And he can't close games because he can't shoot. And he's not healthy. At some point, people need to look at Giannis and say, great player? Don't tell me all the time great.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
A weekend around Major League Baseball that included a full slate on a Sunday and a marquee matchup all weekend long in Los Angeles. The 2 presumptive favorites to win the National League, the 2 presumptive favorites before the year even got underway to win a World Series in 2024, doing battle for the first time this year out in L.A. The Dodgers and the Braves. All 3 games go the way of Los Angeles. Dodger blue in a big way all weekend long, despite yesterday, DRS, being booked as an underdog for only the 2nd time this year. The LA native, Max Fried on the bump for Atlanta. No issue for the Dodgers. Shohei Ohtani 4 for 4 at the dish. 2 home runs yesterday for LA as the Dodgers take the series in a sweep, and the finale 5-1 yesterday over the Braves.
Yeah, we were talking about on Friday, one of the series preview just couldn't quite be the NLCS, and maybe it still is going to be that. But for now, the Dodgers certainly hold that calling card as maybe we are the best team in the National League because we just upended the Braves in a 3-game series and held the Braves to 6 total runs out there in Chavez Ravine. And also keep in mind, the Los Angeles Dodgers waiting to get some key components back into that starting lineup, particularly their pitching staff, which means looks like Walker Buehler is probably going to get a start today, and they didn't even have him in this series. Look, this is a really good win by the Dodgers. Did we expect them to win the series at home? Yes, we probably did. But the way they did it here also, with Shohei Ohtani, as we pointed out to start the show, 364 on the season, 2 more home runs yesterday. What can't they do in that lineup? And also, you take a look at yesterday, Pages did go 0 for 3, but he's hitting 319 here. It always feels like the Dodgers. You mix those rich superstar talent contracts in with some of those kids coming up out of double and AAA, and it usually works in your favor. The Dodgers 23-13 now look a lot better than what we were looking at last week. A couple games over 500. They'll get it together. Maybe this is the momentum that the Dodgers needed with a sweep over the Atlanta Braves to really propel themselves. And also from a Braves perspective, you want to get at least 1 out of those 3 games, because when a team like the Philadelphia Phillies is really playing good baseball right now, you're dropping some games. It's rare to see the Braves, who usually run and hide in the regular season in the NL East, now in 2nd place.
Yeah, absolutely so. And for LA, they've won 8 of their last 10, 4 consecutive victories for the Dodgers. So let's see how this weekend series, albeit significant, but still in early May, affects the long-term odds. In the pennant market to win the National League, the Braves move back by 10 cents. The Dodgers see their price shorten by that same amount, plus 155 for LA, plus 230 now for Atlanta. The Braves before the weekend, plus 220, LA plus 165. The Dodgers actually see their price shorten in the World Series odds, but so too does Atlanta. Maybe because of what Philadelphia has done, but also some maneuvering in the American League. The Orioles now the best record in the AL. But the most wins in baseball, that belongs to the Philadelphia Phillies, who have now won 5 straight games. A short underdog yesterday in San Francisco as well. Sunday Night Baseball against the Giants after scoring 14 by the Bay on Saturday. It was a big 3rd inning for the Phils. 3-run bomb from Bryce Harper. Bryson Stott, RBI double. They go up 5-1. They hold on to win 5-4. Again, the Phils, the most wins in all of Major League Baseball, make that 24 now for Philadelphia.
Yeah, coming into that game yesterday, I thought this was the game that the Phillies were going to lose in this series and maybe stop some of the momentum. It would have been yesterday because Logan Webb coming into that game, 3-2 overall, but he's pitched very well throughout the season. 4 innings pitched, 4 earned runs, as you brought up here, which brings his ERA up above now 3.5. But also, Taijuan Walker, one of those pitchers that the Phillies signed a few years back, expected to be that true number 3 in the roster. Now the Phillies are looking at him as like a 4 or a 5, and anything that you get out of him is going to be a positive. Pitches into the 7th inning yesterday, did give up that 2-run home run to make the game 5-3 and a little bit closer, which again, the Phillies ended up winning 5-4, but that's a pretty good sign. Taijuan Walker now 2-0 in the season, despite having an ERA of 6.39. Anything out of him is a positive. When you expected him to be a frontline starting pitcher, now maybe he can settle in and just say, you know what? If I'm going to get offense like this on a day-to-day basis where I'm pitching, I'm going to be quite fine here. So maybe he works out the kinks coming late here out of spring training. But the Phillies pitching staff and team as a whole playing great baseball right now, 24-11. And this is a team, Ben, that we usually wait for catching fire in August and September. Now in first place in the NL East this early in the season. That's a really good sign. And today, they do have the getaway game. Zach Wheeler's on the bump here. So maybe another win on deck for the Philadelphia Phillies. The first of 25 games is a possibility now.
2.5 game lead for Philadelphia in the National League East at this moment. Again, very early on to decide a division, but a very good start for the Phillies. And as you said, day baseball randomly in San Francisco today. You don't often see a 4-game set through the weekend into a Monday afternoon, but that's the scenario in San Fran. And the Philadelphia Phillies, a hefty favorite today. Are the games back in Philly? Wait, hold on a second. Is that right?
Yeah, the whole series is in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I said. What did I say? Out in San Francisco? That was on me.
Yes.
Philadelphia at home once again. That's all we've ever been saying. The Phils minus 205 favorite with Zach Wheeler. Yeah, maybe they did. Zach Wheeler on the bump today for this 4th and final game to end out a series. Everything is thrown off when you play 4 games through the weekend. Even hosts on television can get a little caught up. But, Donnie, you've made this point a few times, and I think it's really going to be the story we follow throughout this Major League Baseball season. We'll see some odds shift ever so slightly by a couple of cents, maybe $1 or $2 here. But it's really the shelves in the National League, the clear tier of 2, the Dodgers and the Braves, and then not all that far off, Philadelphia, and then the Phils in front of everybody. You have to almost triple or take a third of the price out of the Cubbies to get to the Phils at 6-1.
Yeah, and this is the way it should be. It's the Dodgers, Braves, and Phillies. You can put them in any order. Now, it is kind of interesting that the Phillies are playing such great baseball right now, and so a 6-1 price to win the National League. Now, you might say, well, the Dodgers eventually will be the better team, and maybe that's understandable. But from a pitching perspective and hitting perspective and a record perspective here, the Philadelphia Phillies look like they're pretty good. But I always say this. You don't win the National League at the end of September and early October. To win the National League, you got to win in the playoffs, and maybe they're thinking that the Dodgers and the Braves just match up better against the Philadelphia Phillies in the playoffs. We'll see if that's more said than done because the Phillies, frontline pitching, they can match up with anybody here. Should be fun to watch it play out throughout the summer months here.
And we'll talk about the rest of Major League Baseball from the weekend that was. Around the Diamond up next here on the Early Line. Torrey Taylor, who they actually needed some help in terms of their punting unit. He is going to be great.
But I do firmly believe if Odunze is not on the board, that they probably trade back and gain assets and look to fortify their team across the board. But the fact that we got a bozo pick in number 8 here from the Atlanta Falcons, that's the reason why I believe also it's a great pick to have the Bears as the winner.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Giannis not available. So what is that, a 6-year window? He's been injured in, he's been injured in 4 of the last 5 playoffs, Coach?
And he can't close games because he can't shoot. And he's not healthy. At some point, people need to look at Giannis and say, great player? Don't tell me all the time great.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here because I'll tell you, that's a bad, bad, bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I admit, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The hottest team in Major League Baseball saw a streak come to a close this weekend. The Twins, entering the series finale against the Red Sox yesterday in Minneapolis, had won 12 consecutive games. They were favored around a minus 178 home money line price yesterday against Boston before the Red Sox snap the 12-game win streak and win their first game of the series. Boston victorious 9-2 over Minnesota. 12 games comes to a close, but it was an important 12 games for the Twins, the preseason favorites to win the American League Central, now back 5 games above 500, 19-14.
And by the way, the Twins yesterday, you figured they would have had the advantage. Ryan was on the mound having a pretty good season. He goes 6 innings pitched, only 3 earned runs given up, but still hammered 9-2 overall. And also, you take a look at the Boston Red Sox ending that snapping that streak, I should say, by going with the de facto bullpen game. Criswell went 4 1/3 innings. Then they brought in 5 more pitchers to close this out, which included Kenley Jansen coming in here late in that ball game. And look, you take a look at the Boston Red Sox on the season, 19-16. We are expecting them to be a distant last place in the American League East, and that's certainly not the case as they improved to 12-7 on the road. Baseball is tough. You can't win every single game, but also from a Twins perspective here, all those wins that you piled up here, they didn't just go out the window. You're back in the race now from a tough start to now saying, you know what, we can win this division and we're back on even footing. I like that out of the Twins, though. So even though they took the loss yesterday, good on them for getting back into the race this early and saying, you know what, let's get after it here in the month of May.
Listen, 10 of the 12 wins, 7 of them came against the White Sox, 3 against the Angels, but the 2 wins over Boston, who maybe we expected to be the bottom feeder in the American League East, that has not been the case. The Red Sox, one of 3 teams above 500 in that division. Baltimore, the best record, 23 wins now for the O's. Also 23 wins, but a few more losses than the Orioles for the Yankees. And the Red Sox, 19-16. The Rays, below 500 despite a series sweep this weekend, including a walk-off yesterday in the bottom of the 10th for Tampa and a rally for the Rays to sweep the New York Mets this weekend. And as we shared earlier in the show, Alek Manoah, his first MLB start since last August, he gets shelled. The Blue Jays drop 2 of 3 against the Washington Nationals, who are an even 17-17 at 500 this year. A part of the weekend that was around the bigs. The Yankees DRS a big weekend series sweep against the Tigers after dropping 3 of 4 against Baltimore.
Yeah, Soto with a big base hit late in that game, and as the rain came down in the Bronx, that's a good win for them. But also, the Tampa Bay Rays, New York Mets, who got knocked under 500 after that series at 16-18. Sometimes, like, Bader's a really good center fielder. He's one of the better center fielders in baseball, but he does make a mistake there in the bottom of the 10th inning. If you keep the baseball in front of you there, you have a legitimate chance to maybe extend that into the 11th inning. He goes for the dive, misses it, then there's 2-run scoring there, so the Tampa Bay Rays pull that one out. The Rays also, one of those teams still flying under the radar. Not a lot to love in that lineup or in that starting staff, but they're 17-18. Right. Let's see if they might be able to get on a little bit of a run here, now improving to 11-9 at home in the Trop. But one of those teams that you can never quite count out. We'll see where the Rays go from here.
Again, the Orioles, a weekend sweep over Cincinnati in Cincinnati, 11-1, the victory yesterday for Baltimore. 5 RBI game, including a grand slam, really as the icing on top in the ninth for Anthony Santander and Baltimore. Again, the O's, the best record in the American League at 23-11 in front of the Yanks at 23-13. There was some momentum for Houston entering the weekend. The Astros lose the weekend set against the Seattle Mariners, dropping the final 2 games. Houston now 12-22, tied for the second worst record in the AL, Donnie, alongside the LA Angels. The only team worse, of course, the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah, one of those teams we thought would really factor into the AL race, let alone the AL West at this point, still scuffling around. There's a lot of good players on that team and a lot of talent for them to be playing this poorly. Good thing in Major League Baseball, it's not the NFL where you have 17 games to get it right. You got a long season here, but sooner or later, you got to start that charge up the leaderboard here, and we just quite haven't found that yet for the Astros.
The A's dropped their series finale, getting hammered by Miami in Oakland yesterday. 12-3 the victory for the Marlins, but Oakland entered that series finale winners of 6 straight games. The A's only a game below 500, 17-18, well in front of both Houston and Los Angeles for not having the worst record in the American League West or near the bottom of the American League. The Cubbies win the final 2 games of their weekend series against the Brewers in the battle between the 2 top teams in the National League Central. The rest of the weekend, a busy one in sports, comes your way when Hour 2 starts in over 2 minutes.